Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Let's follow up with a point that you're making right now about the House managers, as you say, doctoring evidence, and the argument.
They didn't deny
for our
it.
Viewers,
they didn't deny it. I put it in front of them 3 times.
To be clear for our viewers, what you're talking about now is a check.
I can't even get through it. This makes me laugh. I don't know why it makes me laugh so much. This is the Chad Benson Show, by the way. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. Thrilled to be here. Thrilled for a lot of reasons, actually. And I'll get back to that audio in a second because it's about to get awesome. There's going to be some fighting going on between Trump lawyer Michael Van de Veen and Lana Zak. And I just think it's quite amusing the way in which this back and forth happens on national television, and probably much to the delight of a few people and the chagrin of a whole lot of other people. But before I do that, I just want to say, and this is not specific to just the latest impeachment trial, and I'm not going to tell you much about my own personal opinions as to whether or not I think that Donald Trump was guilty of what he was accused of. I think that Mitch McConnell, I think that a lot of other people are going to be capable of doing that for me and going back and forth with what they feel was an egregious lack of understanding at the very least, or maybe other things transpired as far as the actions the former president took on the day of the insurrection, and then what actually legally needs to happen, what the ramifications are of impeaching a guy that's no longer in office. All of that is to come as well on the show. But the first thing I want to say is it's over. It's not just this impeachment trial, everything. The Donald Trump world that we all lived in for so many years. And I'm not saying this because I'm a hater of the Trump. I'm not a never Trumper. I want to put that out there too. I'm just saying that this world of politics that we've gotten in, where the left and the right seem, and they're probably going to fight just as hard. I mean, come on, who am I kidding? The politicians are definitely going to fight just as much with each other no matter what. It doesn't matter if an idea is good or bad. They don't care. They just care what political side of the aisle is winning and which one is losing. But that the world in which we had just this crazy fever of kind of going after the president of the United States because a lot of people hated him. A lot of people hated this man is gone. And now there's this big debate, too, on the Republican Party. Like, what do they do moving forward? Is the Republican Party the party of Trump? Does he continue to be a face and a person that, grabs a lot of attention? And the answer is probably yes to that part of the question. Or do they move on? Does the Republican Party find a way to, I quote from some other people that have said this, I think Bill Cassidy, one of them, Senator Cassidy, find its soul? But let's get back to that audio I was playing just a second ago. This is Trump lawyer Michael Van de Veen. And by the way, his house got attacked. He's dealt with a lot of stuff just for defending the president, the former president, I should say, in what he feels was a pretty obvious legal problem with the case as far as the impeachment, the second impeachment trial of our former president. And Lana Zak, who is a name not a lot of people, I think, had in their brain, is all over the TV and all over the news over the last 24 hours because of the way this back and forth took place. Here you go.
Mark, that's a verification on Twitter that did not exist on that particular tweet. A 2020 that should have actually read 2021. And the selective editing, you say, of the tapes. Is that the doctored evidence of what you're speaking?
Wait. That's not enough for you? That's not enough for you?
Wait.
No,
sir,
no.
I'm trying.
Listen,
I am not a juror in this trial. What I'm trying to be clear for our viewers.
I don't know if you were already smiling. I don't know why I'm smiling, actually, because it's just the interaction. I'm not necessarily cheering on one side or the other, even in this debate that's now occurring. But Lana Zak does feel like she just got hit by a car, like deer in headlights kind of situation here. Because wait, what? That's not enough for you? The prosecution doctored any amount of evidence, anything that they made up, anything is not bad in your opinion. You're going to go ahead and explain to the audience how some of the things they doctored are really not that important. That's what we're doing now.
Is what you're referring to, because not everybody has been following.
It's not okay.
Not everybody,
to doctor
sir,
a little bit of evidence.
Respectfully, I have not said it is. I have not said it is okay.
Ma'am, your question is
I want to be clear for our viewers.
Listen, what
I
has
want to be clear for our viewers about what exactly you're saying when you say doctored evidence.
The media has to start telling the right story in this country. The media is trying to divide this country. You are bloodthirsty thirsty for ratings. And as such, you're asking questions now that are already set up with a fact pattern. I can't believe you would ask me a question indicating that it's all right just to doctor a little bit of evidence.
That is a very interesting take. There is obviously more, as you're going to see all over the place and hear all over the place. The Trump lawyer eventually just gives up on the interview and walks off, very upset in the way in which this back and forth goes. But to me, it's just so interesting to hear the way in which news media can now interact with people that aren't even the president. I know that a lot of news media hated, the former president. I keep doing that. The former president of the United States. I'm not trying to drum up any kind of a crazy conspiracy theories on my own with that. I'm used to one thing, but the former president, Donald Trump, and I don't know. I wonder if as we get further and further away from his presidency and into the Joe Biden presidency, that I think will be a little boring. Although I did see, I think it was one of the bigger Democratic website, like one of the bigger to the left websites out there, the Huffington Post or someone, where the headline was Joe Biden will lie to you. Because all politicians lie. Every single one lies to you. Cuomo is now in a bit of a problem for the ways in which he probably suggestively or didn't remember all the truth all the time correctly as far as some of the things going on during the pandemic, something that his brother Chris Cuomo obviously ignored the other day and is now getting also taken aback by or taken down for that on some forms of social media, not all of them. I think it's very interesting the way in which all this goes, but maybe, just maybe, we'll get back to a world in which politicians can talk to, or even lawyers can talk to the news media and not get in crazy arguments and fights. I just assume we're getting back to that world. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is the time and place for this to continue. And I guess that is part of the point, too. Let's get to Cassidy. He is one of the senators who voted against Donald Trump, who voted to impeach the former president of the United States, even though he's no longer in office. And he gave some defense to that position, including a discussion about what happens moving forward for the Republican Party.
I had the privilege of having the facts before me and being able to spend several days deeply going into those facts. As these facts become more and more out there, if you will, and folks have a chance to look for themselves, more folks will move to where I was. People want to trust. They want to trust their leaders. They want people to be held accountable. Now, I'm attempting to hold President Trump accountable. And that is the trust I have from the people that elected me. And I am very confident that as time passes, people will move to that position.
That is Bill Cassidy on whether or not he thinks that maybe more information is the way in which we get over that hump. And then there's also Larry Hogan. Larry talked about the Republican Party itself, much like, I guess, some of that sentiment from Senator Cassidy, and what happens moving forward. You know what I'll do? I'll save that audio for a bit. I got a lot of other great things coming up. I have a comedian. There's a viral comedian that sang one lyric to a song over and over again to replace all the other lyrics. He just one line in that song, and I think it's rather funny. I don't know if I'm going to be alone in that. I will play that for you in just a bit, coming up on the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in, but I do want this from you on social media, other forms of social media, our Twitter page. You can go to my Facebook page, facebook.com/Craig Collins Show, or Chad's. Tell us what one lyric you'd like to hear turned into an entire song, a la this comedian I have in just a bit coming up, because I think there's a lot of options as far as songs that could be just a repeat of one sentence over and over again and still be entertaining, amusing. We'll get to that. We'll get to Governor Hogan a lot in just a bit. Chad Benson Show. This is Craig Collins filling in.
No fake outrage here, just the real thing. The Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. I am a happy guy today, but I'm not as happy as Dave Chappelle has been over the last few days. I don't know if you heard, Dave Chappelle got a bunch of money from Comedy Central. He signed a contract years ago when he was an up-and-coming comedian before he was a very famous human, mostly because of that TV show that he had on Comedy Central, and then the infamous way in which he kind of left the show, and now his obviously very successful stand-up comedy that's continued to, I think, rake in money for places like Netflix. but he fought Comedy Central when his TV show wound up back on a lot of those streaming platforms. He asked the audience, the listeners, the viewers, he called themselves his bosses, to stop watching. And I guess they did. Here's Dave Chappelle. What I also think is interesting about this, though, he waged his entire war on a giant company based on things he was saying in stand-up bits that he put up on social media. He put two different things up on social media. They were stand-up routines he did about these topics on Instagram specifically, I think. One of which when he was begging to be paid and then saying that people shouldn't watch, and the other of which is celebrating now getting paid. And that worked. That alone caused a movement. A post to social media of a stand-up routine he does in some club somewhere. It's quite interesting the way in which he won this battle. But here's Dave.
I never asked Comedy Central for anything. If you remember, I said, I'm going to my real boss, and I came to you because I know where my power lies. I asked you to stop watching the show, and thank God Almighty for you, you did. You made that show worthless because without your eyes, it's nothing. And when you stopped watching it, they called me, and I got my name back, and I got my license back, and I got my show back, and they paid me millions of dollars. Thank you very much.
You know what's so interesting about this, by the way, and I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve it. Dave Chappelle had no licensing rights to a TV show that he definitely created. His name is the same name as the show, The Chappelle Show. He had every right to be paid for that, but he signed a contract where he didn't make that money. But what I think is tremendously interesting about this whole viral story is that in the year of the pandemic, in the last year plus of us all struggling, a lot of people dealing with financial hardship that they didn't expect to ever deal with, we're celebrating a guy that is a multimillionaire already, getting millions of additional dollars because he deserved it. And again, I'm saying he deserved it. I just think it's interesting that we're celebrating it so hard in the world of social media, that we're so excited and happy. I guess I'm saying we, as if everybody is. But a lot of people seem to be quite thrilled that Dave Chappelle got paid. And yet, wouldn't it be better if, we could get back to the post-pandemic world that we're getting closer and closer to all the time? It seems like the vaccine rollout, which, by the way, I think Kamala Harris even lied again recently, saying there was no plan. Trump left nothing. That's not true. That's been debunked already. But the vaccine rollout plan seems to be getting better and better all the time. It seems like we're months away from potentially having ourselves for the most part, in the rearview mirror of the world in which we've all lived for so long. And so I guess maybe that can add to the Chappelle story. I'm not sure. But let's talk about this one other thing. I teased it. I want to get to it. I'll talk about a bunch of other more important things, I promise, throughout the remainder of the show. But this viral comedian put up a video of him singing Jack and Diane, a very famous song, but he chose to only re-say one lyric over and over. He just repeats sucking on a chili dog. And I want everyone to hear me say it, by the way, real quick, in case you miss it at some point when I play the audio. All he's saying is the word sucking on a chili dog, which are from the song Jack and Diane. And it's great. And I think this is my question to all of our social media people out there. What other song would you like to hear as just one line repeated over and over again, a la this comedian?
Sucking on a chili dog, 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 chili dog, sucking on a chili dog, sucking on a dog, sucking on a chili dog.
Come on. I mean, this is wonderful, wonderful audio, in my opinion, everyone, because he just keeps repeating. And maybe a lot of people are sitting there right now like, why is this funny to this guy? It is. It's hilarious to me. And I can't tell you why. I think we need more of this. We need more songs reduced to one line and just hear it over and over again as we play through the whole, because it's still entertaining. I mean, am I getting the whole story about two kids growing up in the heartland? No. Do I care? I do not.
Sucking on chili dog, sucking on a dog, sucking on a chili dog, sucking on chili, sucking on a dog, sucking on a chili dog, sucking on chili dog.
What's so great about this, by the way, if we do more of this, is it makes it so much easier for so many of us to sing along to songs. You know you get things wrong all the time. And you know you've been tempted to just repeat the one lyric you know when singing a song, say in a car. And this comedian has gotten that done for us, at least with this one song. And so I'd love to know, anybody out there, please tell me what other songs deserve, they deserve to be reduced to just one line from that song. I also saw a viral post recently about the best opening lyric to a song. Queen has a few of them in the viral thread that I was looking at. So maybe go in that road. Think about things that you love from the first couple lines in a song, but just tell us on social media at The Chad Benson Show or at The Craig Collins Show on Facebook.com what other songs deserve this guy's one lyric treatment, because I think there's a lot of options out there. I won't spoil all of them by telling you my own opinions first. I'll let you guys give us some, and maybe I'll read them at some point on the show if we get enough. But yeah, just please go to our, and that's the other thing I love to do when I fill in. This is Craig Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show, is I love to put something in social media that Chad has no idea why people are doing. I don't think you guys play along as much as I ask, but if you do, I would love for Chad to come back tomorrow and be like, why am I getting a bunch of sucking on a chili dog mentions on my social media page? This is why. You let Craig Collins drive the car for one day, and he did horrible things. I'm going to have to take a break in a bit. After the break, I do still want to talk about Larry Hogan. Larry Hogan is has a very interesting take. Governor Hogan, as far as the Republican Party moving forward post former President Donald Trump, he thinks that the party needs to move on, as some do. I think it might be a smaller portion of the Republican Party that feels so strongly in that opinion, but I'll have more audio to play on that. I also have an Italian woman that tells us what dishes aren't actually Italian, which hurt me as a born and raised American who feels like I have Italian heritage, Italian roots, because it is my family. I found out some things I didn't know about ways in which the Italian people don't consume meals like we do. And I don't know. Now maybe I can't get spaghetti and meatballs anymore. That's all I'll say. I'll have more of that in a bit. We're going to talk a lot more about the Trump impeachment trial. Of course, we have Mitch McConnell to get to. A lot coming up. Craig Collins filling in. Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Mitch McConnell. Do you like him? Do you dislike him? A whole lot of people, both sides of the aisle, kind of agree on at least. A lot of people don't like Mitch. They're not a fan of Mitch right now. And the reasoning is a little bit different depending on what side of the aisle you're on, which I guess makes complete sense. For those that hated Trump, for liberal people or anybody that was hoping to see a former president impeached after he's already left office, the problem with Mitch is that he said a lot of stuff in his speech they liked, and then he voted to acquit. The problem for people on the right, people who were hoping that Republicans wouldn't, I think, break. I mean, I don't know if all Republicans hope this, by the way, because several, more than ever in the history of our country for an impeachment trial, went against their party to vote for an impeachment. And more importantly, the kind of surreal part is that the guy's currently not in office, which a lot of people seem to not really care about. But here's Mitch, and I'm not going to play the most viral of the things he said over the weekend because you're hearing those everywhere, and I'm sure you've heard these things I'm about to play as well. But I do think that context is valuable. We're in a society now where every single human who talks into a microphone, myself included, can be reduced to one soundbite. You can be reduced to one sentence, similar to a song I was just playing a bit ago. And it doesn't matter if in the context of everything else you said, that one sentence that might look or sound bad actually doesn't sound or look as bad. If you add a whole bunch more of the discussion to the equation, maybe you don't feel as angry as the person that you're now hearing this one soundbite from and feeling like they totally misstepped. And yet we don't do that. As a society now, we don't care. I can simplify it to essentially a Twitter tweet, and if somebody is upset with what I just said via the tweet, then I'm screwed. Mitch McConnell, I think, is partly in trouble right now for that exact thing. But here, let's hear from part of the speech in which I think he is providing a tad more context to the reason why he voted a certain way.
In recent weeks, our ex-president's associates have tried to use the 74 million Americans who voted to re-elect him as a kind of human shield against criticism. Anyone who decries his awful behavior is accused of insulting millions of voters. That's an absurd deflection. 74 million Americans did not invade the Capitol. Hundreds of rioters did. 74 million Americans did not engineer the campaign of disinformation and rage that provoked it. One person did. Just one.
And yet we all know what's coming. Eventually there's going to be a but to this statement. But he does continue to, as you've seen in some of the other viral audio of this, lay out all the reasons why he blames former President Donald Trump for what happened at the Capitol.
I've made my view of this episode very plain. But our system of government gave the Senate a specific task. The Constitution gives us a particular role. This body is not invited to act as the nation's overarching moral tribunal. We're not free to work backward from whether the accused party might personally deserve some kind of punishment.
I think that right there is probably the most valuable statement that Mitch McConnell made. Whether or not you like this guy anymore, whether or not you agree with anything that he said, pro or anti, the former president of the United States, I think this sentiment, and I know that a lot of people are accusing Mitch or any other Republican that went the opposite way, that decided to acquit the former president, that it didn't matter. They were going to come up with some excuse no matter what it was. But just listen to that again, that position, that, and I love this statement actually most.
This body is not invited to act as the nation's overarching moral tribunal. We're not free to work backward from whether the accused party might personally deserve some kind of punishment.
He says that maybe the accused party deserves punishment, but we're not allowed to go backward. And most importantly, that this hearing isn't the entirety of the situation. As Mitch, I think, points out, and you've seen this as well a lot of places, former President Trump has some legal issues that he's going to have to deal with that go well beyond anything else that comes in front of the House or the Senate. He's going to have to deal with some other things now that he's no longer president of the United States. One of those will be issues involving what happened at the Capitol. And it doesn't have to come from the Senate. That's his position. I don't know how much I want to defend the entirety of the position, because I know so many people right now on both sides of the aisle are anti-Mitch. And I'm not saying I'm pro-Mitch. I'm just saying that I think we all misinterpret the totality of what he's trying to say. Here's a little bit more from him.
If President Trump were still in office, I would have carefully considered whether the House managers proved their specific charge. By the strict criminal standard, the president's speech probably was not incitement. However, in the context of impeachment, the Senate might have decided this was acceptable shorthand for the reckless actions that preceded the riot.
That's Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell, who did vote to acquit, saying a lot of things about how the former president, Donald Trump, definitely did not hold up his end of the bargain. At the very least, I don't know if that's the right phrase to use, in the actions he took the day in which people attacked and were looking to hurt, some of them looking to hurt some members of Congress. And I know that there's been some back and forth, some, I guess, a little bit of teasing or I don't know the right way to explain it, but AOC was in the news for a while and saying how afraid she was, and people were making fun of her. And I'm not saying that every single thing that was said in that regard is unfair, because politicians are ones to exaggerate a lot of things all the time. But in this case, there were truly people breaking into the Capitol that did want to harm members of our government. And that's not a place we want to get to in society. That, I think, is a big part of this entire debate, this entire conversation. I think this is interesting, too. One of the lead impeachment managers, Jamie Raskin, did say it didn't matter what they did. There was always going to be a way in which Republicans would disagree. And so I ask you this, Jamie, or anyone else that went through the process of trying to impeach a president no longer in office, why? Why do it? Even President Biden seems to be happy that it's over, in my opinion. I don't know that I can completely, back that up with much proof, but I know that they want to move on. I know that they want to get to their own agenda, which apparently involves guns. That's been in the news today, too. But let's just hear a little bit from Jamie Raskin on what he thought would have been, and I guess in this back and forth, they are talking about other potential strategies on television the other day, but it doesn't matter, apparently.
Her story was known for weeks. Why did you not try to contact her until the last couple of days?
No, she issued her statement the day before,
right.
And we brought up the resolution right at the time that the resolutions for witnesses were called for, according to the Senate resolution. There's no other time we could have done it. That was the moment to do it. We won that vote. We were going to proceed to do it, and then the Republicans stipulated to allow the evidence to come into the record.
The first response there, and obviously there was a lot of debate as to whether or not witnesses were needed, but Jamie Herrera Butler, one of the potential witnesses that would have been called, overheard a conversation that House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy had on the phone with former President Trump. And that was a huge part of the debate. And I think that is a valuable question to ask. Why not call this person sooner? Why not try to get a witness earlier on? And that is part of the duality of all this, part of the double-edged sword, I should say, is that they didn't want it to last a long time. Democrats, Republicans, everyone. No one wanted the impeachment trial to last a long time. And yet, they also felt, I guess, that there was no way to win.
Now, you ask about some other people who might have gotten up there and lied. We don't know what Kevin McCarthy would have said. I mean, that was her record of what he was telling people. What he told people was that he had called Trump to say, you got to get us out of this. Hell, these people are here. Trump said, it's Antifa. McCarthy said, no, it's not Antifa, Mr. President. It's your people. You got to get us out of here. To which Trump said something like, well, maybe they just care more about the election than you do, i.e., Trump knew exactly what they were doing. He knew that mob which he had deployed was there, occupying people's offices and threatening Congress. So it was there.
It's very interesting to me, again, to have maybe smoking guns like that potentially available and not utilize them at all. And a lot of people on social media said the Democrats folded. And yet I will tell you that I'm fairly certain that no one wanted this to go on for a long time, which just makes it feel more like political, performance necessary, a lot more so than any kind of actual looking for the truth. If you didn't really need to use witnesses like that to make your case better because you just wanted to move on to other things, why do it at all? I guess that's my biggest question. I want to keep moving on from this story, though, because we are in a post impeachment of Trump world, which they took 2 tries at that, and now it's all over. So hopefully we can all move on to other things, maybe talk about some of the other things that are happening in the world, some of them serious, some of them not so serious. I got to take a break in just a bit. I want to cover Governor Cuomo a bit on the show because I think it's very interesting the way in which obviously CNN and his brother don't cover it. But even Saturday Night Live made some jokes about Cuomo and left out any conversation, any discussion whatsoever about the ongoing problem that Governor Cuomo may have with some ways in which he kind of misused the truth himself. But I'll talk about that in a bit. Chad Benson Show, Craig Collins filling in.
You go, boy.
This isn't about right or left. This is just about right and wrong.
Right you are, Chad. The Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Chad is back tomorrow. Happy President's Day, by the way, to everybody out there celebrating, which I can't imagine. I would love it if someone's having a real hard President's Day celebration today. So to you, happy President's Day. There's a support group for Karens now. I believe this is a social media support group. They recently had their leader, Karen, who spells her name with a C, by the way, pop up on television. She talked about how her son sometimes gets embarrassed when she does things like ask for maybe a manager to speak to because her name is Karen. Let's hear a little bit from Karen with a C.
It's a common ground. Create that positive social change through actions, words, and outreach. We were at a place recently and I said, could I please speak to your manager? My son was like, oh, Mom, are you being a Karen? Asking for a manager. is not always negative.
Could have been. She might have been a Karen right there. Well, she is a Karen, but I just love the way that this audio starts too, by the way, because it sounds like such a more important issue. If I didn't tell you what was being discussed and just the fact that a support group has popped up online to help people, and then I played you this.
It's a common ground. Create that positive social change through actions.
I mean, you'd be like, okay, what's going on? What's the positive social change we need? Apparently, it's to stop picking on Karens so much, because that Karen, and I love the fact, I don't know why, that she spells her name with a C, is struggling a bit. I also saw this in the news. I like some weird news out there every so often. In Japan, because everybody's been working from home for so long in so many different places, or maybe working remotely, they've started to see a skyrocket in popularity of something they call the telecube. This is essentially a phone booth cube, no bigger than our typical. And for anyone that doesn't remember, there used to be a booth that had a phone in it because you didn't walk around with one in your pocket. But it's just that size. Superman used to use it to change between Clark Kent and Superman. Again, for those that I'm losing by discussing it. But what it has in it is a desk. It has a power PC, power outlets, video conferencing software, everything you need to work remotely inside a tiny little cube. And they're even popping up like outdoors. So I ask you, truthfully, this is a real question to everyone listening to the show. Do you think we can go too far in the working from home thing? Do you think maybe unplugging, getting away from things is good? And the day in which you get hired by a company that wants to mail you their telecube so you can just work whenever you need to. It's a soundproof booth, and it just exists for your enjoyment anywhere. That maybe that's a step too far. Maybe you don't need to be accessible all the time for soundproof video conferencing for those that you work with. But in Japan, I guess, tremendously popular. What I think is so interesting is they have them in a line. I guess because they're so effective at keeping, I guess the sound contained in just that one environment. It does look like a bank of phone booths with people just, by the way, like if you did a full 8-hour day inside a telecube and you had a serious job, say like you're working on the stock market trying to trade GameStop stock before it crashes, I can't imagine you emerge from that cube looking like any form of human we're ready for. That has to be a very downtrodden kind of person that spends an entire day closed inside a very small box doing a bunch of different work and video conferencing too. I wonder if you'd even judge someone you connect with in that world and be like, you know what, man, maybe you just got to get out and get a breath of fresh air before we keep going down this road of talking about what we need to do. I also saw this in the news. This is an update now for the people that I just lost a second ago when I was talking about the phone booth. I'm going to bring them right back. Apparently, the youngest generation, not even the millennial generation, but the Gen Z group has decided that a specific emoji is not cool anymore. I don't know if we're going to need a support group for this emoji, and a lot of adults maybe use it a lot. A lot of parents might utilize this emoji. You might have sent it a time or two, and guess what? If you're sending it to a young person, they think you're lame. It's the crying with laughter emoji. That's right. We're doing emoji news here on the Chad Benson Show. Craig Collins filling in maybe for the last time. I'm kidding. I hope. But the crying with laughter emoji apparently just isn't cool. It's not what you're actually doing. According to a lot of kids, you're not actually crying as you're laughing. So lame, you're lying. And then secondly, it's just, it's just used too much. So the tears coming out of your eyes, don't use it anymore. It's become way too cool. Use something different. Maybe the upside down smiley face. I don't know. Maybe we need a lot of young people to weigh in. CNN actually interviewed people about this too. And I have the audio, but I refuse to play it. I refuse to go down the road of listening to a 17-year-old person tell CNN that the crying face emoji is just too bland, and a 21-year-old person saying you need to find a better emoji when conveying the laughter. It's just, what news is that? Although, to be totally honest, I'm kind of thrilled that was news compared to anything else out there in the world, because, we all need a breather of whatever kind we can get from the serious things of the day, and that would be one of those very not so serious. And last thing, I should say this. Go ahead and use it. Just go crazy with it. I know some people who do that. Once you find out that it annoys one of the young people in your life, just send more crying face emojis, not less, and see how that goes. Maybe eventually people will relent. I don't know why I'm so interested in this story, but I am. I also saw one last thing. I got to take a break in a bit. A North Carolina sheriff's office for Valentine's Day came up with the most unique way to celebrate the holiday I've seen in a while. And I love the anti-Valentine's Day celebration. but this sheriff's office asked people to turn in exes that are convicted and wanted. This is hilarious. If you've dated an ex-con, according to the North Carolina Sheriff's Office, you should go ahead and celebrate Valentine's Day by turning them over to the police. Do you have an ex-Valentine and know they have an outstanding warrant? Give us a call with their location and we'll take care of the rest, is what they put up on social media. Wow. Talk about a way to celebrate the holiday that would have a heck of an impact. I mean, I saw another one. There's another one I'll get to later on about a woman who did a very unique thing, celebrating her boyfriend's social media use for Valentine's Day. But this one, I mean, they said operators are standing by on social media, just waiting for your call. Not only does our county police force provide us with great service, they also keep us entertained, according to one social media follower. Because it is. I mean, admittedly, it's probably funny for almost everyone except any person who got turned in that day. But really, come on. I mean, I think that that's the most unique anti-Valentine's Day I've ever heard. Maybe you get some sort of like rose when you get picked up. Maybe there's some sort of thing in the police car. I don't know. There's ideas, ways to celebrate this a little further. But this is, as I said, the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. I will get to serious topics again coming up in a bit. I will talk more about Cuomo, more about a lot of the things going on right here in just a bit.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Chad is back tomorrow. Former President Donald Trump acquitted. He is not going to be impeached, even though he's no longer in office. That is the unsurprising decision over the weekend by the Senate. Let's hear a little bit from Governor Larry Hogan about the Republican Party itself, because now, and this is just something I want to say to everybody, people who liked the guy, people who didn't like the guy, the Trump Daily News thing is, I think, for the most part, over. I think for the most part, there's not going to be a third impeachment. And maybe there is. Actually, I should never put anything past anyone in politics, but I'm assuming there's not going to be a third impeachment trial while he's still not in office. But let's hear a little bit from the governor about, his own opinions. Obviously, he's not a fan of the former president and what he thinks needs to happen for the party itself moving forward, because there does seem to be a split. Nothing better demonstrates that than the fact that for the first time in the history of our country, a large amount of people went against party, much higher than we've ever seen before, to vote to impeach a guy who's no longer in office. That would be several of the Republican senators who made that. Not enough. I think they needed 17. They got 7. But they definitely didn't necessarily toe the party line the way that people are expected to, or the people typically senators behave. So let's hear a little bit from Governor Hogan on that.
It's interesting when you look at the number of Republicans that voted to convict. It's 15% of the Republican conference. And that feels about what the split is inside the Republican Party right now, right? 85-15, and the 85 is sitting there with Donald Trump. Is that how you view it? Yeah.
Well, it's hard to tell. I mean, I think this stuff is fluid. Let's face it. The president has only been in office now for a month, and so we have a long time. I think there's going to be a real battle for the soul of the Republican Party, and the battle's just beginning. And I think some of us are going to stand up and try to fight for the party that we believe in, that we've been a part of for so long, and. There's going to be folks that want to continue to head down this road of Donald Trump. And we're going to figure out, whether we're going to be a party that can win elections or not.
It is very interesting to think about the ramifications on a political front moving forward as to how much, I guess, the influence of the former president stays, how much is retained of his version of doing things in the political space, and how many things go back to the way that maybe they were more commonly the way that we'd experience things. I don't know. We will see. We will see who emerges in the next 4 years to take on Joe Biden, who I don't even think will actually run again in a few years. I already feel that way. I know that a few months in that I think it's going to be a one and done on his own by his own decision making. But we'll see as we go. Lots going on there. There's actually a push today by Biden to create more gun control. This is something on the anniversary of the Parkland shooting. Obviously, a horrific event. Any public, any mass shooting is a horrible, horrible event. And so it's an interesting day to choose to focus on a thing like this. And yet, I know that there's going to be debates and issues moving forward with the agenda that Biden and his administration will put forward. So the honeymoon will end, I think, very quickly, if it still exists at all, for a lot of people that are probably even people on the Republican side of the aisle that are happy that maybe a guy they didn't want to be in charge is no longer in charge. You will see the ramifications of having the other side of the aisle in control. I do want to play this audio, too. I thought it was interesting over the weekend. Jim Jordan talked about cancel culture. There is a famous actress that recently lost a gig based on things she said on social media. There's a lot of other people who've seen a lot of the cancel culture impact that we've had. And I know that it's been derided, this clip, on social media for not being as important as some of the other issues of the day. But it might just be.
When the San Francisco Board of Education said the Dianne Feinstein Elementary School will no longer be named after Senator Feinstein, a liberal icon, not good enough because 37 years ago she said something the cancel culture doesn't like. That's how ridiculous, that's how dangerous this is. And the latest one is Mr. Van der Veen, who did a great job defending the president. He's faced it now. But if we don't push back on this and stop it and stand up, as Mr. Dershowitz said, stand up for the Constitution and the First Amendment, it will only get worse. And so this is the number one issue for the country to address today.
I think there's value in a part of that argument. I don't know if I'd make every part of the argument that Jim is making, but I do believe that moving forward, and I'm not going to defend any one famous human who's caught up in cancel culture of any kind, but I do believe that we've gone to a weird place as far as the things that can happen in the world of, say, just social media. If you do something wrong, no matter how old it is, if someone discovers it and shares it on social media, there is a chance that the pushback, the guy from The Bachelor is now in trouble for this too. He made some sort of comment that is, I guess, racially insensitive. I haven't dove too much into the things that were said, and I will do that before talking about it in more detail. But that individual has also decided to step back from their gig, a gig they've been doing a long time, because of the way that cancel culture has gone after them. So it is an interesting byproduct of the world in which we live right now. One, the availability of things like social media to make these opinions feel. They aren't actually always the majority opinion. They just feel like it to maybe the companies making decisions on who they hire and who they can. But more importantly, the way in which all of us are now going to be checked for anything and everything we do. There is no ability for most of us in any sort of public space to be human, because I believe that to be more often than not for a majority of people who are cancel cultured. And I'm not putting every single person into this description. There are people who did terrible things that they deserve to be in trouble for legally. Those people are exempt from what I'm about to say. But a majority of people who say tweeted something and the thing they tweeted is not okay to the masses, those people may have made a mistake. They may have changed an opinion. They may have moved on. And I think that for us to be human beings, myself a Catholic, you got to find a way to be somewhat understanding, if not forgiving, to the fact that so many of us make mistakes. Case in point, and I'm going to go a very silly road in trying to make this comparison. I saw this viral bit. This is from an Italian woman talking about the misunderstanding many Americans have on what actually are Italian dishes. There's a lot of food out there that we believe to be Italian that is not actually consumed in Italy the way that it's consumed other places. I don't know why I started doing my accent there, but I'm an East Coast Italian, born and raised, and I kind of thought that I knew some things, but I don't. I do enjoy a spaghetti and meatball. I think I've even bragged maybe on this program, certainly on my radio show, about how delicious my grandmother's meatballs are, although she does serve them without any sort of pasta. That is something that just always happened. She serves them medicinally. If you get sick, you usually get a grandma's meatball to make you feel better. But here's a couple takes from an actual Italian woman about the dishes that we are very confused about.
Let's start with spaghetti and meatballs. Italians actually don't eat meat on top of pasta like that. It's normally in a sauce, like ground. So you can find meatballs as a side, but never on your pasta. The same goes for chicken parmesan and also eggplant parmesan. Next up, we have pepperoni pizza. Now, pepperoni in Italian actually means peppers. So if you order a pepperoni pizza when you're in Italy, you will not be getting this. Next, we have garlic bread. They use garlic for seasoning their dishes, and then they remove it upon eating.
I don't know what hurt the most. I don't know if the spaghetti and meatball hurt, the pepperoni pizza hurt, or the garlic. I think the garlic bread hurt the most, that's not a dish in Italy. But see, we make mistakes, and yet Italy can forgive us for our silly misconceptions about the food items that come from that country, or we claim to come from there. This is all just a thing we can move on from. We can all come into the hug circle together, although actually, okay, not yet. In a few months, hopefully, and get over some of the things that happen in society that make us cancel each other, because we are going to get to a point where someone posts a photo of spaghetti and meatballs on social media and says, loving this Italian restaurant, and they get canceled because that's not Italian. I do see us going down that road at some point if we don't stop ourselves, hopefully in the near future. All right, I got to take a break. After the break, I will discuss Governor Cuomo out of New York and some of the issues that he's seen as far as the things he said. He was praised so often during the pandemic for being one of the most honest of our politicians, and yet he probably hid a lot of truths about retirement homes that he shouldn't have been hiding. So that is part of the discussion. And then the way in which social media and also the actual media have covered this story is I guess, not as shocking as it should be, but a little bit confusing, because places that you'd think would at least have some sort of mention of it, like, say, CNN, are leaving it mostly to the wayside, a story unreported, as well as Saturday Night Live making a joke and not including this as part of their discussion in their weekend update segment. But that coming up in a bit. Craig Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
Deep states? No. Deep doo-doo? Yeah. The Chad Benson Show.
As it is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. A Democratic state senator in New York is pushing for a full investigation into New York Governor Andrew Cuomo's handling of data during the coronavirus pandemic. Obviously, the accusation is that he knowingly lied about some of the things happening in nursing homes there in New York. Jessica Ramos, as I said, is her name. She's in a district in Queens. She had a blistering statement she released last week asking for a bigger investigation into the things that were hidden from the public, hidden in those news briefings that were so well regarded by so many people. This is interesting as a news story in and of itself, but what I think is just as interesting is the way in which it got covered over the weekend. CNN ignored it a majority of the time, and certainly Andrew's brother, Chris Cuomo, ignored this story. And then even Saturday Night Live made some odd jokes about Andrew Cuomo and how he looks like Mo from The Simpsons, which admittedly funny, but then had no mention of this going on. It's a Democratic state senator who's pushing for this investigation because a lot of people feel that there has been a lot of, and I think there's even been some proof of this now, misinformation provided to the public. And maybe the better point in all this for those on either side of the aisle is that every politician, the ones you hold in high regard or the ones you hold in with very little regard, are likely to lie, and sometimes lie about horrible things, serious things. I don't know what the motivation would be for that in the case of Governor Cuomo or anyone else, but they did. All politicians misuse the truth, if I'm saying it in a almost politician way myself, for whatever reason they want to use that mis. So the fact that we've, for the last 4 years, been so cognizant of how many times and how often our last president lied to us, it may be interesting to continue down that path with everyone in a leadership position now, because unfortunately, I'm just letting you know, it's probably not going to be all that different than what we've seen before. I saw this story just totally pivoting, shifting gears, because I very much want to every time I hit serious news of the day. I don't know what about this is the most amusing to me. I have a few potential shots at it. The first one, just the headline: Florida hot dog restaurant actually drug dealing operation. A report, cops busted up a Florida restaurant, and it's owned by a guy with an awesome name, By the way, if you happen to be a dude who owns the Chi-Town Italian beef and hot dog stand in Florida, I don't know why I do my accent with that one, but the Chi-Town Italian beef, it's a pretty good spot. His name is Louis Younglove. His last name is Younglove. He apparently is actually a drug dealer who just happens to own a hot dog stand in Florida. That can only happen there. He would sell all kinds of things. I guess he was picked up, and Younglove, I'm going to keep enjoying to say that last name, on his person, he was in possession of large amounts of cocaine, marijuana, edible THC, fentanyl, ecstasy, Xanax, oxycodone, hydrocodone, Adderall, and $18,000 in cash. The Broward Sheriff's Office said that detectives found more on the menu at the restaurant than just Chicago-style hot dogs, pizza, and chili. According to their investigation, there is a large dangerous narcotics peddling organization going on there. I don't know why you choose hot dog stand. I don't know if that's like some play on the banana stand from Arrested Development. I don't know if hot dog stand is the typical choice. I thought that I've seen Sopranos. I thought that a lot of people who did that kind of stuff had nightclubs and other things. I didn't know you went the road of Chicago-style hot dog stand in the middle of Florida. And your name is Louis Younglove. If you have a last name like that, I think that you are immediately a suspect on a lot of things. It's a cool last name. I'm not trying to judge. I'm just saying that, all right, a guy with a hot dog stand with a name like Younglove, to me, has a shot. And I'm not trying to be anything other than just silly in the way that I talk about that because, I don't know. Moving on to other stories in the news, I saw that 1 in 3 coworkers has stolen food. This is true everywhere in the country. I guess some states are a little more likely to do this than others. Food can include drinks. A large majority of people actually just steal beverages out of the work office fridge, which maybe people haven't been doing as often as in the past, but where a lot of us are back to work now. 47% of people admitted to stealing something during their work experience, mostly from other people. Drinks, as I said, were number 1. The order of items stolen food-wise actually starts with pizza. That's one of the more common things that people will take. You know what? Let's get in the trust tree. Let's fully be in the trust tree for a second. I may or may not, at some point in my work career, have taken a thing out of the fridge that wasn't mine. But I'll tell you my strategy for it, and I know that I'm getting judged now. Anyone that's had this happen to them, I've had things stolen from me too. I felt the effects, but I usually try to replace it within an hour or so of taking it, depending on and I work in radio, so shifts can be all over the place. Somebody can be coming in much later than you. Maybe it's a friend of yours. Maybe it's their item that's in the fridge. And maybe you can get that Red Bull back in the fridge before they get into the workplace. It happens. I don't know. I think that maybe my excuse is poor. But, especially in my industry, you can't always take a 20-minute lunch. You got to get back for the next segment. You only have a commercial break. And so maybe you take a thing. But that is typically my strategy. By the way, Red Bull is one of the most common things stolen in the fridge as well, along with other energy drinks and specialty coffees and sodas that might be sitting in there. So just a little warning that if you are in a workplace and you do put something in the fridge, 1 in 3 people is likely to steal that thing. So just look around the office, maybe pinpoint who it is, put a note on it. I don't know if the passive-aggressive note works terribly well, but I've seen that too. Once someone is the victim of a stealing in the office, you usually see the next item that goes into the fridge with a very long note about the things that'll happen. Maybe we install cameras near the I don't know. What would even happen if you copy? Would you do an impeachment trial-esque kind of thing to get somebody in trouble for taking an item out of a fridge? I don't know. But I'm just saying that it's a thing that a lot of people have done, and yet you'll never get anybody to admit it. That's the last part. I just did it. I doubt that I'll get anybody else that I know. And you can say it on social media if you've done it. Go to our Chad Benson Show on Twitter or on Facebook. You can go to the Craig Collins Show on Facebook as well. Tell us if you've ever taken anything out of the company fridge and what it was and why. And I doubt I'll get many to play that game. But all right, quick break, a lot more in a bit. Chad Benson Show, Craig Collins filling in.
Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in for the day. Chad is back tomorrow. My next guest is Rich Lenkov. He is the co-host of Legal Face Off, a brilliant podcast all about legal issues and legal stories, some of which serious, some of which silly, much like all the law. And a brand new podcast, too, Rich. You got a new one out there, right?
We do. It's exciting. It's called Trial by Vinyl, and it sort of marries my love for legal things and music. The concept is we're going to be debating which album of two albums by one of your favorite artists is best. That's probably a bad description. So one artist, two albums, which is best. That's the simplest way to say it.
Yeah. You love to debate things. I don't think you could possibly do a show in which people agree. Is that correct, Rich?
That's true. It's the best kind of radio and podcasting, in my opinion.
There you go. I want to get to a few of the sillier stories that come up all the time on Legal Face Off. But before we hit those, let's talk just a bit about the story from over the weekend, the second impeachment trial of former President Donald Trump. He was acquitted. People like Mitch McConnell said very damaging things, very, I think, things that a lot of regular people can't understand, how you still vote to acquit after the strong words that are used there. What is your sense of the way in which this trial went, why maybe witnesses weren't used in the trial, and then I guess the outcome? Did it surprise you at all?
Didn't surprise me. I'll take that last one first. Didn't surprise me. I think, like most of us, we understood the dynamics of needing a two-thirds vote in the Senate, and the makeup of the Senate would not allow that to happen. So I think no one was surprised by the outcome that they wouldn't get the requisite number of Republicans to cross over. I think what was a little bit surprising was that they got 7. I mean, I think most people expected, Mitt Romney and a couple others, but the fact that they got 7, which is a majority of the Senate, remember, when you look back at this, people will think that a majority of the Senate voted to convict the president, an ex-president. That's a big deal. But I wasn't surprised at the outcome. What I was surprised about, frankly, was on Saturday when we saw in the morning that they had voted to call witnesses. That was a big surprise because we all thought that things would wrap up on Saturday. Then we heard about the witnesses, so we thought this would be a prolonged trial. We were hearing about weeks and months and possibly years of additional litigation and gathering the witness testimony because if you recall, we are still litigating whether the subpoenas from the last impeachment trial and the one before that are valid. So this stuff could take years. Anyway, they decided not to call witnesses and to stipulate to the one Congresswoman's statement into the record. That was, I think, a terrible decision on the part of the managers because who doesn't want to hear from the actual mouth of the people there, right? Eyewitness testimony, Craig, is always more compelling than a bland 2D statement. So that was surprising.
Well, what you're talking about, Jamie Herrera Butler and her hearing of a phone call between Kevin McCarthy and the former President Donald Trump and the things that were said during that exchange where Kevin was asking for help while the siege was going on in the Capitol. It's very interesting to me, though, as you say that and the big mistakes maybe made that a lot of legal people have discussed as far as the Democratic position and the prosecution side of this. I have to ask the question, does that start to make it feel like this was a show and not really a trial with a desired outcome? Because the more I see this, and I'm not trying to say that someone is or isn't guilty of the things they are accused of. I don't want to go down that road. But if you're not going to go the witness road, if you're not going to go full on into trying to actually prove your side of an argument like this, what are we actually doing? What did we spend a week or a little bit more than that of our time on, and why did it move on so quickly? Was this a political show more than a trial?
Yes. 100% you nailed it. Okay. It was a show. It wasn't a trial. But we have to understand that it's not a regular trial, right? We've only been through a few impeachment trials in the history of the United States, which is a long time. So to be fair, you can't judge this proceeding the same way you would a regular trial. In a regular trial, you have plenty of time. You have the luxury of, investigation and depositions and lots of discovery. And you don't have that in this kind of trial. The flip side is you don't need that. The standard that you judge a president by or anyone impeached is not the same that you do a criminal defendant. You don't need the same evidentiary standard. So that's why it's different. But yes, they made mistakes. Yes, it was a lot for show. Yes, they knew the outcome likely before going into it. But that being said, to me, the biggest blunder by the managers, by the Democrats, was not calling witnesses. Once you secured the proper votes on Saturday to call witnesses, what's the downside of calling witnesses? I mean, imagine if you had, Kevin McCarthy testifying about the conversation that he had with the president, where allegedly, there was a heated discussion about whether to call in troops, and McCarthy ended up saying, "Who the F do you think you're talking to?" I mean, that's compelling evidence. That's compelling, testimony against the president. I don't know why you wouldn't do everything you can to bring that in. The argument was that, we wanted to get on with it. Well, if you want to get on with it, why'd you hold it in the first place?
Exactly my point, Rich. And I did see the lead impeachment manager for the House, Jamie Raskin, say in an interview that he didn't know if Kevin would lie, essentially, if they had called him. Isn't that the problem for every lawyer with every witness in every case? Is if you call someone that's not part of your side, you have no idea what they're going to say, but your job as a lawyer is to get them to tell the truth, yes or no?
Yeah, what a stupid answer. Of course that's the job of a lawyer.
There
I mean, any competent lawyer knows that people that they are adverse to have the potential to lie. That doesn't mean you don't call them. If I didn't call any adverse witness who I thought would lie or who was lying, then we'd all be out of business. It's your job as a competent prosecutor, especially as a prosecutor who deals with people who lie for a living, impeach them. Show the jury that they're lying. Show the Senate that they're lying. That's your job, and it shouldn't be that hard. If you have, a credible eyewitness testimony.
I've gotten you worked up. Let's shift to the gear of some of the other sillier things you have in the news. I saw SNL made a joke about a lawsuit about Gorilla Glue. This is somewhat viral, and I think you guys also covered it on Legal Face Off. Give me a little bit more of the details for Tessica Brown is her name, and her lawsuit against Gorilla Glue.
Well, she hasn't filed yet, but she will. I mean, inevitably when you have these kind of incidents, there's always lawyers coming out of the woodwork. So Tessica Brown ran out of hairspray, a problem that you and I don't have too often. But she decided to, instead of her hairspray, use Gorilla Glue spray. Yes, Gorilla Glue. I mean, and she posted a TikTok video that got, I think, 12 million views where she was complaining that her hair was now, stationary, and it had been for like 30 days. It didn't move. And when she complained to Gorilla Glue, I guess they told her that she should use alcohol on it. That didn't work, and that put her in a hospital. And now, she's become a viral sensation. They parodied her on SNL. There was a law firm ad on SNL saying we could help all the different victims of Gorilla Glue, mishaps, which is, of course, a joke. So the takeaway here is, if I was trying this case before a jury and I was defending Gorilla Glue, and by the way, I've defended a lot of hair salons in my career.
Oh, is this actually a job offer you're throwing out there? This is a pitch?
Hey, listen, here's the pitch. And it's a very, this legal argument, Craig, is very hard to understand. It's very legalistic. It goes back to the 1800s. My argument to a jury would be, it's called glue. Goodbye. and I would sit down, and I might use another term. I mean, it's a simple defense. It's glue. Right?
I don't know why. I just pictured some of like the legal movie moments where it's like you can't handle the truth. That's the Rich Lenkov I just saw for a second there. By the way, I will ask you about. I will ask you about this too. There's this huge celebration of freeing Britney Spears, and I haven't checked in a lot on what's going on there. Can you give me just a quick overview of the Britney Spears legal thing and why so many people are apparently thrilled she's free now? Was she actually inside of some sort of cage? What was happening?
Yeah, well, she's been under the auspices of a conservatorship filed by her father. Conservatorship is basically, when a court says that you can no longer control either yourself, your finances, your medical condition. It's most frequently used, of course, with older people when they can't, take care of themselves. So that you go in and you have the courts, appoint a conservator. It's very unusual to have that with someone who's, whatever Britney's age is, 35, 40 years old, who's making millions and millions of dollars. So last week, a judge heard further testimony in the ongoing saga of whether her father, who she was estranged from for years and years, Craig, her father wasn't part of her life. By all accounts, he was really serious about getting some money out of her career. Suddenly, he's her conservator, and she no longer has control over her finances, her decisions. So the Free Britney movement is, to try to get the judge to impose a different conservator or to allow her to control her own finances. Britney certainly has a history by all accounts, of some, mental issues. She had a couple of breakdowns that have been highly publicized. Sure. But, the movement, which is largely online, supports the idea that she can control herself and her father shouldn't be in control. So it's a really big deal. It's in the news now because there's a new documentary presented by the New York Times on Hulu that's really great, that really goes through the whole legal aspect of it.
Some unexpected things during this interview. I didn't think you'd recommend a Britney Spears documentary on Hulu, but Rich Lenkov just did it. And then also, I got depressed when you said that she's between 35 and 40. She's 39 years old. I don't know why that makes me so sad as a person. Real quick, I have one. I didn't prep you with this one. I want to throw it at you, though. This is a lawsuit that's now going on. A guy, 48 years old in Florida, his name is Joseph Davis. He had two serious relationships going on at the same time. They were both about 6 years in length. He met both women on OkCupid. He proposed to one and was ready to get married to her, but something happened in Joseph Davis's mind that he decided he'd rather marry his other girlfriend. He stole the engagement ring from woman one to give to woman two. How serious of a crime is that? I mean, the engagement ring thing, it's obviously a verbal contract. That's not, I don't think there's anything written anywhere. But obviously once you hand it to someone and the value of it, I can't imagine that Joseph Davis's ring was all that valuable. But I think that he's going to be in some legal trouble. The cops were called. He was arrested, warrant issued, et cetera, et cetera. So tell me, how big of a crime was this? And why did Joseph not just buy a second ring?
I mean, it's a romantic Valentine's Day story for sure, Craig. I mean, at least he was in love and, he was doing it for the right reasons. But, right. I mean, listen, the law doesn't look at, thievery of a ring any less because you think it belongs back to you, right? Remember. Okay. I mean, talking about one of our most famous legal defenders of all time, O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson went in. He's in jail now, not for the murder, for the two murders he committed, but because he went back and stole property that he thought belonged to him. So even if this individual thought that the ring belonged to him or he had some right to it, once he handed it to her, it's hers. And if he goes and tries to steal it or he stole it, that's robbery. That's against the law.
I'm just surprised she wants it. To be honest, I'm just surprised she actually wants it, because if you find out about the second girlfriend and you find out that he's trying to propose to her too, in some of those situations, I'd imagine you'd just be willing to give it back. If he just admitted to her he had a second girlfriend, she might have thrown it at him, and then maybe no crime committed.
Absolutely. Yeah,
okay.
Take it. Believe it or not, there's lots of cases about people alleging that engagement rings that have been broken, the engagement is broken off. There's lots of lawsuits over whose property that ring is. It happens all the time.
Fair enough. Well, you are Rich Lenkov. You are the host of Legal Face Off, a WGN radio podcast, one of the preeminent podcasts talking about all things legal, serious and silly, I think it's every other week. You also have a brand new podcast out. Give us that information one more time.
Yeah, Trial by Vinyl. It's me and Mike Heidemann. You can check it out on our social media page. We covered Bruce Springsteen, Born to Run versus Born in the USA, and then next week we'll be doing the Stones. So check it out.
Hold on, which one? What was your position? Which vinyl is better of Bruce's biggest two hits?
Well, as you know, I'm a massive Springsteen fan. Seen him over 100 times. I had the unenviable task, Craig, of defending Born in the USA over Born to Run. I mean, I'm a big Born to Run fan. But I had to defend Born in the USA, and I convinced our jury of our peers that we won. So I think it was a 7-5 decision that Born in the USA is the better album. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, congratulations on that, because I have to listen to that episode now, because I can't imagine that the argument would make sense to me, but I'm not going to put it past you. You're a great lawyer, and thank you, as always. Great guest on the Chad Benson Show with Greg Hounsfield, and that's Rich Lenkov. Quick break, a lot more in just a bit.
Set Chad straight. Text the show, 323-538-2423. That's 323-538-CHAD. Someone has to do it. Might as well be you. The Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. I don't know why, but I've taken the position of continuing to kind of sort of celebrate Valentine's Day a bit, talk a little bit about some of the stories that made the news over the last couple days. This one, a viral story. There's a lot of music playing behind this woman's TikTok video, but she made a gift for her husband on Valentine's Day that was brutal, according to a lot of people on social media. She put up a collage of photos of social media things that he had liked liked, and these were all other women's posts. He had liked maybe one too many or 10 too many or however many it was in the collage, photos of women on social media trying to look attractive. And the wife had this to say.
Since everybody's sharing what they got their significant other for Valentine's Day, I thought I'd share mine. So I got my husband this cute little box, filled it with pictures of all the girls' photos that he's been liking on Instagram. Hope he likes it.
That's an interesting move as far as gift go. I don't think that their relationship was ending, by the way. The woman's name was Gloria. She just wanted to post that she's noticed, I guess. She wanted to keep him informed. Is it wrong to like a social media? I mean, the Pope has done it, or at least we assume who's ever in charge of the Pope's account has had one or two run-ins with of liking things on Instagram that don't make a lot of sense to some. And I can't imagine that the Pope is actually in charge of his Instagram. I have to be honest, out of everyone on planet Earth that I would say may, to some extent, potentially have someone else running their social media, at a very top part of my list, one of the number one options would probably be the current Pope. I just can't imagine that he's doing a lot of things on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And so as we judge some of these, maybe that should have been the husband's excuse. Maybe he should have said that he has someone else, some younger person running his social media, although then that might have turned into who's that person and why are they doing that? But I think that's the go-to is like, oh, that wasn't me. Somebody else. They must have been logged into the work computer and done it. But it was all women looking cute on social that she decided was a valuable gift this Valentine's Day. Maybe it just makes everybody laugh, and maybe the husband has a good sense of humor and everyone moves on because this should be a sillier thing. And I certainly enjoyed watching it and then enjoying other people's drama. That's a big part of life. I have to talk about a lot of other things in the news. Of course, I have another guest coming up on the show. Cody Gough will be talking to us. He is the co-host of Curiosity Daily. It's a really cool podcast. It's an award-winning podcast that gives you little scientific studies and information, 3 or 4 different topics every day, about 5 to 10 minutes per show to help make you smarter. That's the pitch. I listen to it a lot in the morning when waking up, and there's a lot of things on it, just little kind of water cooler discussions that I think are tremendously valuable. I will also talk about a rapper who has an allegedly pink diamond embedded in his forehead. This is a real story. American rapper Lil Uzi Vert, and I don't know if I just said that name correctly or not, shocked fans with a $24 million decision he made recently. I have so many questions and so few answers as to why you'd go the road of putting bling into your forehead. But that's just, I guess, shows who I am as a person. My bling is very mild and certainly not embedded in any part of my body. Quick break, a lot more coming up. Craig Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in for just the day. Chad will be back tomorrow. I saw this. The CDC has said that Americans should be more vigilant than ever with new variants of the coronavirus. The coronavirus pandemic spreading, new variants of the disease spreading. You need to be vigilant, and they warned states not to reopen too much to not repeat the problems of the summer of last year. I guess having just an issue with that. I don't know. I was just talking to my producer, Phil, off the air about what likely is the future for all of us as human beings. And I hope that if the vaccine is effective against all of these variants and is a potential outlet to, I guess the having as many people as capable as possible as preventing the illness, that we eventually get back to normal. And I think that I've even seen Dr. Anthony Fauci, who I know is derided often, say that something like April, it would start to be available to everybody. This would be the vaccine getting to anybody and everyone that wants it. I don't know if that line would be as long as all the other lines have been. But hopefully by the summer of this year, I'm as hopeful as any that we are closer to back to normal. I know that everybody doesn't fit in that position. I don't want to throw producer Phil's position out there without his approval to do so. But I know that there are a lot of people that say different things about when we'll be back to normal. I just hope it's soon. And I guess this CDC warning maybe throws caution on my hopes. But if you're someone who's still looking for the vaccine, someone who's gotten the vaccine, someone who is, hopeful that life returns to normal soon, I am with you. I hope we get back there. As I see in other news, just other news bouncing around, of course, I can continue to talk about the impeachment trial that ended over the weekend, the second impeachment trial of former President Donald Trump. A lot of different takes about the Republican Party itself, about the president. Mitch McConnell is certainly someone who's being talked about a lot. He did say this, Mitch, about the legal issues for the former president moving forward outside of any sort of impeachment trial.
President Trump is still liable for everything he did while he was in office.
Lots of long pauses, Mitch.
As an ordinary citizen, unless the statute of limitations is run, still liable for everything he did while he was in office.
There is something interesting about that, just to reiterate that to anyone that might have forgotten it, for anyone that feels that what happened over the weekend was unfair, and I know a lot of people think it was fair. That's not the totality of what might be the outcome of the presidency that was President Trump, and certainly what happened in Washington at the Capitol. Those things still can be tried in other courts of law and still will have their time, and there may be ramifications to that. It doesn't have to be an impeachment per se. I don't know what will happen. I'm not a legal expert. I don't want to weigh in too heavily. But it does bear repeating, I guess, even from Mitch, who's, as I said, very disliked right now on both sides of the aisle, that there's more to come in the legal woes of the former president.
We have a criminal justice system in this country. We have civil litigation. And former presidents are not immune from being accountable by either one.
Right. That is something that's true. I know that a lot of people, as I said, do dislike Mitch more for the things he said attacking former President Donald Trump and his role in the insurrection that took place, which is what a lot of people are calling it. And then obviously his vote being the opposite of his words. I do want to replay some audio from that speech. He gave like a 20-minute speech, and we've reduced it down to just a couple sentences. And I know I'm not of the popular opinion to attempt to kind of defend Mitch, but I just think that more context is valuable. I'm not saying that I totally understand all of the decision-making and the things that were said that kind of run counter to the vote that he had. But I think that some of his logic that he threw out that is mostly unreported has value.
In recent weeks, our ex-president's associates have tried to use the 74 million Americans who voted to re-elect him as a kind of human shield against criticism. Anyone who decries his awful behavior is accused of insulting millions of voters. That's an absurd deflection. 74 million Americans did not invade the Capitol. Hundreds of rioters did. 74 million Americans did not engineer the campaign of disinformation and rage that provoked it. One person did. Just one.
That take is not as erroneous as maybe some feel. Certainly the first part of the take, as far as the amount of people that actually caused harm and actually partook in the insurrection, the riot, whatever you want to call it, that was a very small amount of people. And for anyone to look at someone who supported a political side of the aisle and say, well, you're just like those people who committed that crime is crazy. I do think that take, and I know I'm using Mitch's words in a different way than he intended them, but it's true that anyone who maybe looks at you and who you supported and says that now you are the equivalent of someone that attacked the Capitol, it's ludicrous. Just as ludicrous as the opposite thing in saying that it's impossible to criticize the president, the former president, and the actions that President Trump had days leading up to, weeks leading up to that moment, and also during that moment, depending on what account you believe and what additional maybe information comes to light in the next few weeks, months. It's a very interesting concept to think that those two things can be separated, that yes, 74 million people did vote for President Trump and did approve of the job he was doing his first term in office. And I'm not saying approved of that last moment, but certainly approved of a lot of the other things that had happened. That is true, but that does not go hand in hand with saying that the people who committed crimes would be allowed to do those sorts of things. Here's a little bit more of Mitch from that speech where you've heard just a few snippets of it. I'm not sure that you've heard this.
I've made my view of this episode very plain. But our system of government gave the Senate a specific task. The Constitution gives us a particular role. This body is not invited to act as the nation's overarching moral tribunal. We're not free to work backward from whether the accused party might personally deserve some kind of punishment.
I think that last sentiment there, the second half of that moment, is one of the most powerful. And I know that it's weird to say that there was something powerful in this speech that a lot of people hated, but just listen to this again, because I truthfully think even this concept can be taken well beyond the world of politics. I think that we can point to the world of social media and Twitter and say that the moral compass of our society is not necessarily the people who tweet the most often and the loudest, that it doesn't fall on the shoulders of every one of our senators to be the only version of right and wrong, the decision makers on right and wrong and punishment for people.
This body is not invited to act as the nation's overarching moral tribunal.
That, to me, is just as true now in social media as anywhere else, that we feel in this society that it's appropriate for our morality to be hive-minded. And that's the best way for me to describe it, that anything and everything that occurs, anyone who makes a mistake, whatever mistake it is, and I am not trying to diminish what the president did as if it were just a mistake. That is far beyond just a mistake. So I'm disconnecting that conversation with what I'm saying now as best as I can. I want to make sure that we understand that I'm taking a pivot and moving on from the discussion of the impeachment trial and the insurrection, and more the totality of our society and the way in which we all behave as if none of us can commit any kind of accidents, not crimes, but any kind of mistakes and not be held utterly accountable for them. This is the cancel culture. This is the society that we all live in. And I think that gets magnified when we look at these kind of very serious issues. And I think a lot of people on social media who are probably very upset in the way in which the impeachment trial, the second impeachment trial of the president ended, don't truly understand that concept. They think that there have to be these adults or these senators or whoever it is that come into play and make everything right. And maybe that's the problem. I'm a millennial. I was raised in the generation in which maybe you go and tell mom or tell dad that something bad happened and they make it right and tell you how you're special. And maybe that's just a version of what we're doing now. We're all just waiting for someone in a power position to tell us what we think the truth already is. And if they tell us something different than that, we put our fingers in our ears and say, no, stop it. You can't, because apparently we have no patience for people who disagree with us. That seems to be more true than ever. And I think that it's just a part of this whole process. And this is obviously something on a very large scale and a very serious situation, the former president's impeachment trial and the ways in which he might have incited the riot and the insurrection that occurred at the Capitol, as well as the very tiny things that happen in our society, like someone putting a tweet out and getting fired from a job. All those things. We need to find a better way. I don't know why I'm on a soapbox now. This soapbox feels uncomfortable. I'm going to take a break. A lot more in just a bit. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Running with scissors sounds great compared to this.
Say
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Happy to be here. I saw this article in Mashable.com, and actually I find some of the terminology in it fairly interesting. But they're covering a new TikTok trend where TikTok users put on their Republican sona. This is their Republican personality. They actually don spray tans, thick mascara, pale pink lipstick to transform themselves into Republican-supporting Republic sonas. This is a real trend on social media and on TikTok. For whatever reason, they feel that the physical embodiment of a Republican, the people who are doing this, is as just described. Some of the things in this Mashable article, though, are worth saying out loud. First, it says that TikTok users are notoriously snarky, apparently, as one of the examples. I don't know that to be true or false, but I think it's interesting. And then it says this: conservatives are not known to be good with change. This is quoting a Mashable.com article, and that goes for both public policy and aesthetic. Former President Trump, for example, surrounded himself with women who were all same blonde hair, inoffensive makeup, and above all, they were all white women. For the most part, I think the former president surrounded himself with his family. I know that he had people that worked for him that fit the description just given by Mashable, but I don't think you can help what your family looks like. It also says here in the article that Fox News is known for its conservative bias and for a track record of hiring female anchors who emulate the look that is now being popular on the TikTok app. It's so weird to me the way that conservatives or Republicans can be vilified by social media, because I know that some of the kids that are on TikTok probably don't agree with the politics of all of this, and yet I don't know if they find it funny or not. But this is a very interesting trend to pop up on social media. And I encourage everyone out there who listens to the show, and I imagine quite a few of you might be of the Republican-leaning side of things, to go ahead and throw your Republican Sona up on social media. And if you are a Republican, I guess it can just be a photo of you. Just use the same hashtag that they're using on TikTok or wherever, My Republican Sona, and just any photo of yourself. And maybe that helps to demonstrate the fact that everyone looks a little bit different. I don't know. Now I feel like I'm getting on a soapbox again. In other news, I saw this, that there are 5 habits you need to try to avoid in the morning when you wake up to have a good day. And I think that these are all interesting things that maybe bear at least one mention of. The first, don't hit the snooze button. That apparently is the number one thing. Over half of all people do it. But studies show that those few extra minutes of sleep don't give you any actual value in the world of sleeping, and they just create a bit of a delay in the rest of your day. So whenever you wake up, if it's via alarm or not, it's not terribly valuable to go back to sleep, unless I guess you have several hours in the day. I'm throwing out the waking up in the middle of the night to go to the restroom or something. Anyone who wakes up with just a few minutes before you need to get ready, don't hit the snooze button. Number 2, do not immediately check your phone. And I'll even go a step further, any form of technology. I think that this is a great idea, one that I'm expanding upon beyond this survey, to say that when you first wake up in the morning, outside of a television or a radio, probably a radio, now that I realize what I do for a living, don't consume anything else. Just have this be the only thing on. Certainly, forget the TV idea, just the radio on as you go about the first part of your day. Don't get into social media and don't get into the internet and the world of your telephone until you truly have to. Give yourself some time. It says better options include stretching, deep breathing, drinking water, saying hi to your family. These are all better ideas than immediately going to the world of text and emails. And I agree, outside of the fact that you can wake up with the radio. Starting your day with a sugar rush is a terrible decision, whether it's a cereal or a sweetener in your coffee. If you're putting too much in there, I say this, and I quote the article, you are setting yourself up for a roller coaster of hunger, moody, and tired feelings throughout the entirety of the day. So avoid sugar for as long as you can in the morning. That is one tip that I'm saying, but I don't know that I can follow. I certainly like sugar in my coffee. Do not wash your face is something it says. This I found very weird. Pillows are covered in oil and dead skin, especially if you haven't washed them in a while. So even if you wash your face before bed, it's not a bad idea. Oh, excuse me. Do not skip washing your face. Now I get it. It's not a bad idea to wash your face first thing in the morning. Yes, I do this all the time. Just don't use a harsh cleanser. Okay, I don't know about that part. Soap and water, just fine. But do wash your face. I read that wrong. I don't know why you wouldn't. Finally, if you overlook your mental health, that's a bad way to start your day. You know, I'm going to be honest about this, and maybe people now feel like I'm being too serious about this article on the internet that probably isn't terribly well researched. But I've started meditating just a bit, like a few minutes of it. I think we put on, my wife and I, some sort of like music, you know, the meditation stuff. And we do like a 2, 3, 5 minute thing. I think we even tried the guided ones on places like YouTube. I don't recommend all of those because it's a little weird. First thing in the morning, hearing someone in that very monotone voice telling you you're going to have a great day. But just a couple minutes to yourself with a nice bit of calming music playing is a great way to start your day. I will absolutely agree with them that if you take your mental health into consideration first thing in the morning, right after you wake up, right after you get out of bed, you might benefit yourself the rest of the day in just having that calm moment of peace. So even before you, I guess, turn on the radio and hear us talking about whatever it is we're talking about or anything else, take 2 minutes and just do nothing. Actually, instead of hitting the snooze button, that's probably what you should do. Sit there in bed, maybe do the music if you're cool with it like I am, and just have a nice couple relaxing minutes before the whole day comes at you. Because it's true that news and information comes from all over the place every single day, and it's in our pocket. And so getting that couple minutes of freedom goes a long, long way. One last quick thing, and then I got to take a break. I saw that in the UK, they may start requiring COVID vaccine passports to go to things like restaurants and bars. I don't know that we ever want to get to that position where we have to prove the vaccine. You already have to do things to prove to get in and out of the country. Right now, obviously, in the United States, you have to, if you go, say, to Mexico, you have to prove that you've been tested negative for coronavirus. I don't know that that's terrible. I know that Biden made that decision, and I don't know that I completely agree with it. But if we go as far as start proving that you had a vaccine to get into a restaurant, which is something that's being debated in the UK, we're probably going way too far beyond. I don't even think probably is the right word. We're definitely going way too far in involving ourselves in the decision-making of the American people and the freedoms they're supposed to have. This is something you're supposed to be allowed to make as a decision on your own. So I'm worried about that. Hope we don't see any of that here. Quick break, a lot more in a bit. Craig Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. My next guest is co-host of Curiosity Daily. His name is Cody Gough. Ashley Hamer is the other host of that show. Award-winning podcast you get every single day, Monday through Friday, right into your ears wherever you love to get your podcasts. Cody, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Craig. Who doesn't want to start their Monday with a little learning?
Exactly. Like, that's the pitch of the show, too, right? Just explain it to the listeners a little bit. You make everybody smarter in just a few minutes each day.
Yeah, our idea is that everyone should be curious. Curiosity is such an important thing. And that means learning about whatever is interesting about the world. How people think. How do we put stuff on the moon? What's on the moon? Everything from quantum physics to
why can't I be on the moon?
Yeah, that would be pretty nice. Probably warmer than where it is where I'm in Chicago right now, but
There you go. Let me ask you this. There's a couple stories I have from last week, and then you're going to do me a favor. You're going to tease things that are coming up in the next few days on the podcast. This is unique. This is an insider look at what's to come. The Curiosity Daily listeners haven't even heard these stories yet. But before we get to those, I saw this, that a personality trait could be a key to a lasting romance. I assume you guys did this topic last week because of Valentine's Day, but what's the trait, and why does my wife think I don't have it?
We did do this Friday for in preview of Valentine's Day. Unfortunately, no, the trait is not hosting a nationally syndicated radio program.
Darn it!
That's very popular. I know we're both out of luck there. But no, actually, yes. If you're wondering why you can't find love, the trait that researchers found is humility. It turns out that a good dose of humility is good for relationships. And being humble just means you can basically assess your own weaknesses, but without denying your skills and strengths. And the reason this is important is because people who felt that their partner was humble were more likely to forgive them if they make a mistake. And that's a pretty big thing in relationships, because it turns out when people are in relationships, they tend to make mistakes once in a while. So,
no.
Well, not you, Craig, obviously.
Right. As I've told my wife many a time. You know what I find so funny about that? I just smiled so large when you said that humility is the valuable thing. I talk about politics for a living on the radio, and I think it's tremendously interesting to merge your concept with the world I talk about, because humility might be a huge value for a lot of individuals in the world of politics as well. I also saw this from last week, the computer code that we all see, or that I guess some of us see, maybe not as many of us, to our brains. Is that the same as a language? My wife's actually a web developer, so she says she speaks computer. Does she? Tell me yes or no.
This was so interesting to me. So the short answer is no. So, like, my wife has actually spoken multiple languages over the years. She's got a PhD. She's very smart. And at the start of the pandemic, like probably many people, she decided, maybe I'll try and learn some computer code. There's a lot of jobs in computers. Programming is a hot thing, right? And she figured, it must be like a language. Well, researchers did some studies, and they found out they ran brain scans while people looked at computer code. They focused on Python and Scratch Junior were the scripts they looked at. And they saw activity in a thing called the multiple demand network of the brain. And what was interesting is that part of the brain usually gets triggered. It's very active when math and logic problems happen. But reading code activated the multiple demand network on both sides of the brain. So not only the parts of your brain where math kind of lights up, but also language. So reading computer code is kind of its own thing. So if you've tried to learn it recently and you're wondering, well, I can learn Spanish, why can't I learn computer code? It's because they're different to your brain. You're very unique if you're a computer coder.
All I just heard in what you said is learning code is really hard because it takes the whole brain to do it. That's what I picked up so far. I saw this story too, and I think this was today. The smellicopter is something you went into great detail on. I think, and I've said this to you before when I talked to you on other things, that scientists are very bored people, that certainly the pandemic made it even worse for scientists, and that often they do studies that have no true value whatsoever. It's a take that I have. The smellicopter feels like a demonstration of people just throwing money at something they didn't need. It's a drone that does what, and why is it valuable?
It's a drone that smells. Let me start with what it is. And I will tell you why it's valuable. This time there is an actual reason. So researchers at the University of Washington attached an actual moth antenna to a drone. The reason they use there
can't be any reason. Okay, continue, Cody. Continue.
Moths have a super sensitive sense of smell. They actually have special cells that amplify chemical signals. So they're really good at smelling. What is the reason? Well, Craig, they could help us find the source of things like gas leaks or explosive chemicals, or even disaster survivors by scent. And you wonder, like, there's a disaster survivor. What, do they smell blood? No, they can smell the perspiration on people. So, like, if a mine collapses or something like that, these, theoretically in the future, if they're able to build more of these things, they would actually be able to detect those things. So it's not just to find the nearest Popeyes, right?
Right. No, fine. I've accepted the fact that maybe there is some value in it, but I do want to remind you that the start of your sentence was scientists attached a moth antenna to a drone, and you actually tried to turn that into something valuable. That sounds like bored children. That doesn't even sound like scientists anymore. Let's hit on some of the stories you have coming up on the show. I think that you sent me a few of these. You're going to talk about how not just because you want something doesn't mean that you like it. And that has a lot of implications on the way in which addiction works. So even though I want things, this doesn't mean these are things like freeing Britney is something everyone wants right now. I don't actually secretly love Britney Spears music, Cody.
I'm not sure that that's the exact analogy that I would make. It's more like some people actually liken this to like a cup of coffee, right? Maybe you love that first cup of coffee. We all love coffee, right? But then that second or third cup, do you really want it that bad, or do you just kind of need it, or you just kind of your body's giving you signals that you just want this coffee? This has to do with dopamine and the way it works in your brain. Basically, there's just new research showing that just because you crave something doesn't mean that you're even enjoying it. It's kind of like when you crave candy during a movie, but you can't enjoy it because you just came from a big dinner. You're there at the theater. You just stuffed your face, at McDonald's or something, but you still buy those Raisinets and a Mountain Dew because your body just tells you want it. But that's not really the case. And this is newer research that we're just learning more about. They did some experiments with rats also, and the rats would like run up to an electric fence that would give them a shock, even though they obviously didn't like that. When researchers adjusted some parts of their brains. So
I've just judged you, by the way. That's very interesting. I've just judged you, by the way. You said a big dinner before a movie, and I pictured some sort of restaurant, and then you used the example of McDonald's. I now feel bad for your wife in any sort of Valentine's Day celebration you've had. The big dinner you had at McDonald's before the movie, honey. That sounds very interesting, bud. Here, I see a couple more. There's a hidden letter in the alphabet song that we all sing. Is it the way when we all merge like several letters together? Is that what this is? Or is there really a hidden letter in the alphabet song, Cody?
No, so we'll go into the details and the history on this Friday's episode, but for the sneak peek, the exclusive only heard here on this show,
there you go.
That hidden letter, an honest-to-goodness letter of the alphabet, was the and. You know when you sing like W, X, Y, and Z, the and was actually a letter. And it has to do with like basically the Latin origins of the word. But when people would sing that was the 27th letter of the alphabet. And it was taught in schools as the 27th letter. Who uses an ampersand these days? Well, Barnes and Noble, sure. But you know, it's weird to think about. And it's just a weird part of our history. It just kind of fell out of favor over the last couple hundred years. So clearly we don't see it that way. But yeah, and boy, did it get the shaft. You have to hit Shift-7 on your keyboard. It doesn't even get its own key.
I love the way that you validate things. You have to hit Shift-7 on the old keyboard. That is perfect. I can't believe you actually blew my mind. That fact was tremendous and used to be a letter. I did not know that, and I will now use that in several conversations to pretend that I'm intelligent moving forward, which is the gift of Curiosity Daily that you give to people every single day. We have a couple more, and then I got to take a break. A new analyst has debunked the blood type diet. How often do you guys even study diets during the Curiosity Daily show, and how many of them have any sort of scientific validity?
We study diets all the time. We really talk about these things all the time. Anytime someone is commonly making a scientific claim, we're going to look into it. You know, we take a page from our friends at Mythbusters over on the Discovery Network.
Nice.
So this is a big thing, right? You see this advertised now. It's like, you know, what's your blood type? You should have a diet for it. So it's a relatively small study, but the best evidence we have to date right now put a bunch of people on the diet, and they looked at the blood types across, and there was no difference. Here's what you need to know. No one has ever proven that there's even a relationship between a person's blood type and their ability to digest any types of food. There's no one has proven that. And the participants in this study showed that up. There's also like some theories out there that type A supposedly emerged at a different time in human history. So human, digestive systems are different. Well, no, type A actually evolved before type O, and there's all these other myths that are kind of built into that. No, try whatever diet you want. If you try the blood type diet and it works for you, that's great. Like this isn't, you can try whatever you want and maybe some things will work for you, but there is no scientific basis for like, this is definitely going to be the right way to go.
Are you ready for me to be really inconsiderate? Are you ready for that, Cody?
I'm always ready for that.
Okay, I can simplify dieting. Just don't do any trends. Eat less than you were eating before, and you've officially dieted. How does science feel about that?
Science feels pretty good about that. Or eat healthier. All right. That also works.
Yeah. Eating healthier, also good, but just eat less things, and then maybe your diet will work out. Two other quick ones that you gave me. South Korea researchers created an artificial sun that's hotter than our actual sun. It's not going to happen anytime during our lifetimes, but people do discuss maybe, under the influence of certain things, that they're worried about the sun dying someday. South Korea has solved that problem?
No, that's not what they've done. Here's a good lead-in for this. Did you ever play SimCity 2000?
Just lost 99% of the audience, but yes, I have, Cody.
Okay. All right. It's a video game. You build a city. You can spend money on power plants. And the more expensive, the better the power, right? You get coal and then oil, and then later you get nuclear. That does a lot of power. And then the last one in that game is fusion. And it's like, what's a fusion power plant? We don't have that. That technology doesn't exist. Researchers are trying to work on that. Basically, the fusion of atoms releases a lot more energy than the fission that nuclear power plants use.
Of course.
So these Korean researchers used magnets to run this really powerful electrical current, and they created plasma that was more than 100 million degrees for 20 seconds. And they did this in a highly controlled environment because 100 million degrees is pretty hot. It's actually the center of our sun is 15 million degrees. So this is magnitudes larger than parts of our sun. And you'll have to tune into the next couple of weeks to hear the exact science. But there's a big step towards creating these fusion reactors. And the amount of power we'd be able to generate is just absurd. It's just so much.
Look, and if you ever listen to the Curiosity Daily podcast because of this interview or discovering Cody anywhere, he's not a scientist. He's a science communicator, as demonstrated by the fact that he had to point out 100 million degrees is pretty hot. I think that's what you just said there. I would imagine it is, Cody. I would think that it is. One last quick one, and I don't actually want you to answer this. I'm teasing it for people to go listen to it this week. Why do you always cough when you clean your ears? A lot of us do it. You put a Q-tip in. For some reason, you cough. Why? Cody has the answer on Curiosity Daily, a podcast from the Discovery family of brands, correct?
That is correct. And I'll just real quick, I'll point out that is actually a listener question. We also take questions from listeners, and my genius co-host, Ashley Hamer, our managing editor, answers one of those a week on our Friday episodes. So we love listener feedback and everything. So learn something new.
Right. And I've continued to try to convince you to do a podcast with me where we discuss a serious topic using a really terrible example. You haven't committed yet, but I think that if I start mentioning it on our radio interviews, you might do it. And I'm not even going to give examples of what those would be, but maybe in the future, Curiosity Daily co-host Cody Gough and I will discuss a serious topic using an utterly inappropriate and hopefully silly example. But thank you for joining the show, buddy. I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Anytime. Thanks, Craig.
All right, quick break. A lot more coming up in just a bit on the Chad Benson Show.
Check out our Chad Benson Show Facebook page where you can hang out or hang your grievances out to dry. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. I want to talk about the Pentagon and UFOs, but before I do that, I want to talk about a flop seen around the world. LeBron James fell recently in a basketball game, and it was egregiously bad as far as the performance aspect goes. Maybe he was watching a lot of soccer and just felt the need to bring the soccer world to the NBA. But he actually got warned by the NBA about this. The NBA has warned him, Kyle Kuzma, and a few other people for flopping. They think that, you can't go too crazy. In a world where everything is video reviewed, where every sport now has the challenge ability, where everything we do is seen 75 times from 10 different angles, including the very cool camera angles that we're now getting, I think partially because of the pandemic we all lived through that make you feel like you're in on the action or playing a video game. I guess the flop looks pretty bad, but with about 2 minutes and 35 seconds left in the second quarter, LeBron James just tripped himself. I said, you got to go back and watch it. Maybe I'll put it up on our social media pages. You certainly can find it on Facebook.com/The Craig Collins Show. But it's very, very bad. He got the foul call. He got free throws, but then he got warned by the NBA. And I wonder, to be like a referee in the world of basketball or anywhere else with names like that, with the LeBron James, the Michael Jordans of the world when he played, how much pressure you might feel the minute the star falls over to call a foul, like to be like, all right, that's got to be something. Can't just do that. And how awkward it is when you don't, because most of the stadium, if it's a home game or even an away game for some of the truly marquee athletes in these sports, people are going to boo. People are going to get upset and boo. And as an athlete, as a referee, I might just fold to that pressure. I assume that I'd be an atrocious. I've actually talked about this before with friends. I would love to be an umpire for just one Yankee game. I'm a devout Yankee fan, and I know that I just lost more audience by saying that than anything else I've said on the show. But I love the New York Yankees, and for just one game, if I could be an ump and call ridiculous strikes and balls and 100% in the favor of the home team, it would be great fun for at least me and maybe some other people. I definitely get a reaction out of the crowd, which is maybe not the goal as a umpire, but it is the goal as a radio host, so maybe I'm achieving my goal other ways. But I would absolutely be pressured by it, and I imagine that's what happens, and the NBA has asked them to stop. All right, I have this story. I should note it's from The Sun, and anytime I read anything from The Sun, grain of salt as to how true this is. But the Pentagon has admitted to holding and testing wreckage from UFO crashes in a bombshell Freedom of Information letter that is shared by The Sun. Researcher Anthony Broglia wrote that the Defense Intelligence Agency requested details on all UFO material, which they hold, and results of all tests they have been carrying out on these materials. He wrote in this released information by The Sun, this could include physical debris recovered from personnel of the Department of Defense as residue, all the different kinds of things, crash materials, unidentified flying objects being researched officially, according to at least one outlet, by the Pentagon. I don't know that this always means that these UFOs came from space, per se. They might just be unidentified flying objects that people created, like, I don't know, what we talked about with Cody Gough, the smellable smell-o-vision drone thing. But it is interesting. It is interesting to think, and I think I've had this take before on this very program that how disappointed would you be that aliens could potentially be discovered during a President Biden campaign and administration and not a President Trump? It would have been much must-watch TV to have President Trump interact with aliens, and it would be a very boring encounter to see the exact same holdout. Maybe you reelect the guy in 4 years just for that. If aliens seem like a reality, I'm not advocating, but if they do, you got to get him back involved. Craig Collins filling in, Chad Benson Show. Talk to you soon.
Chad Benson Show.